everybody, my name is Scott Waters. Welcome to Left to Metal. It's time for another artist spotlight. This time it's going to be on another 70s band, one of my all-time favorite bands. One I've been putting off for a while, but I'm finally getting around to doing it. This is Thin Lizzy. Thin Lizzy were formed by Philip Paris Lynott, who was a school friend of a drummer named Brian Downey. The two met in, I think it was 1967, if I remember correctly. I've read several Thin Lizzy books and trying to remember if that's the right date, somewhere around there, 65, 66, 67, somewhere in that area, mid 60s, and eventually they formed a band together. But before that became anything to be of noteworthy, Philip Lynott joined a band called Skid Row, who also featured a guitarist named Gary Moore. And something happened within that band, and Philip Lynott was given the left-footed fellowship out of the band, and somehow remained friends with all those guys despite being kicked out of the band, which is a great way to be. Never burn your bridges. It's just not worth it because you never know what's going to happen. Had he burned those bridges, who knows what would have happened with Thin Lizzy in the future, or if it ever would have happened. Regardless, after his untimely exit from Skid Row, he met up with his friend Brian Downey, and they formed a band called Orphanage. There was also another guy playing around the Dublin area whose name is Eric Bell, who was the guitarist in several bands, including the famous band called Them, which I believe Van Morrison was also a part of at one point, Rory Gallagher, among others. Anyhow, he was at a bar, saw Orphanage playing, and basically tried to convince drummer Brian Downey to join his band. Brian wouldn't join without Phil. Together they became Thin Lizzy. So there you go. He was also in a band called Shades of Blue, which will play a role later in the band's history. But Thin Lizzy were named after a character from a book whose name I can't recall, but it was Thin Lizzy, T-I-N-L-I-Z-Z-I-E. They changed the spelling to Thin Lizzy, more as a play on words because of the way people have actually pronounced it anyhow. So it was Thin Lizzy, and therefore Thin Lizzy was formed around 1969, 1970, in that area. Released their first single called The Farmer in 1971, I believe it was, and that single is the original single is very hard to find. There's been some reissues, some bootlegs of it, which I do have one of those, and I could show it at some point in the future. But let's get right into the discography first. Starting off with 1971's. This is the the London pressing of Thin Lizzy. This is the U.S. pressing, the U.S. cover. This is one I just, when I was a kid, I never owned it. I just didn't know this one existed. I had only ever seen the original, and I had an odd Decca pressing with a different cover. So when I started recollecting my records in 1991 or so, this is one of the ones that I was after. And finding an original pressing at a good price, even then, they were not around. But I did find this pressing about, I don't remember how many years ago it was, but it was awesome to have an original pressing. You can see there's a girl's hip here, belly button, with a little car, Thin Lizzy driving on top of it. There's the band in the back, guitarist Eric Bell, drummer Brian Downey, Philip Lynott. Basically a power trio, kind of basing their style and sound off of guys like Jimi Hendrix and Cream. It's that power trio sound, and that's what you get here. Their sound, however, was very different from those English power trios. They took their traditional Irish roots and brought it along with the rock and the psychedelia that they were mixing together to create their sound. I don't think there was any hits on this particular album. There are some on here that people remember fondly, such as Remembering and Saga of the Aging Orphan. But as far as I recall, there was no singles on this particular album. This, like I said, is U.S. pressing. Let me also show it. This is a repressing of the Decca version. This thing is really cool. This was pressed on Light in the Attic Records just a few years ago. I had been looking for a solid UK pressing, and this came out. I was like, I'll grab this. It sounds fantastic, looks fantastic. Comes with a little obi strip on here. Of course, it's not Japanese. It's a gatefold, which if I can get this out of the packaging, I can show you. And again, the songs on here much different than what you're going to remember. This is not the heavy dual guitar sound that they became famous for in the 70s. So there's the inside. You get to see the American cover, the original back cover, And there you go. This thing also comes with a gigantic poster. Of Philip Lynott, Thin Lizzy, and other such fun stuff in here. There's a little booklet with age-appropriate, era-appropriate photos, and the 180-gram vinyl. And like I said, it just sounds fantastic. There's other stuff in here too. I'm not going to show everything. It's still available, so if you're really interested in Thin Lizzy that much, you probably want to pick a copy of this up, because like I said, it is worth checking out. It sounds fantastic. Again, don't expect, if you don't know Thin Lizzy or don't know their early stuff, don't expect that Boys Are Back in Town sound. This is much more, I don't know what the word is, psychedelic, mixed with Irish folk, mixed with cream. I don't know. It's just very, almost 60s sounding as opposed to the 70s sound that we get later on. Follow-up album, and this is another Decca pressing, Shades of a Blue Orphanage, and of course you get Shades of Blue, which was Eric Bell's former band, and Orphanage, which was Thin Lizzy and Brian Downey's band. And I don't know if this is actually pictures of them or not. You know, I never thought that you should look at that or not, but I don't think it is. But anyhow, maybe it is. Kind of looks like them. 3 little Irish kids in the front, 3 Irish men on the back. Again, on the Decca label. This was 1972, and the sound hasn't changed much, and I don't recall any huge hits on this one either. Can't remember if Whiskey in a Jar was on here, or if that was just on as a single. Let's see here. No, Whiskey in a Jar was not on here. Sarah's on here. Of course, the title track. The Rise and Dear Demise of the Funky Nomadic Tribes, Buffalo Gal. Some of the more noteworthy songs on this album. Again, very different sound from what they became known for. Like I said, this is an original Decca pressing. This is the center ring. And their third album, which has fantastic artwork from, what's the guy's name? Fitzpatrick. Anyhow, he did a lot of covers from this point on for Thin Lizzy, and just fantastic artwork he did. And this is one of my favorites, actually. Kind of love that flat graphic look of the band and the whole space thing going on in the background. This is when album art was an art, you know, it wasn't on a computer. This was hand-drawn, and this is just fantastic. I love Fitzpatrick's artwork. So anyhow, third album from them. This sound did have a bit of a look into what would become Thin Lizzy's future. They were getting a little bit heavier, a little bit harder rocking. You've got, of course, the title track, which is a noteworthy song on here. Little Girl in Bloom, Gonna Creep Up on You, which was a harder rocking song. And, of course, the song that became Phil Lynott's moniker, The Rocker, which is just an epic, heavy song. You've got Slow Blues on here. If you're going to try any of the early Thin Lizzy albums and give them a shot, this is the one I recommend. Absolutely fantastic. Again, don't expect Boys Are Back in Town or any of those, you know, Live and Dangerous style heaviness. This is more 60s feeling, even though it was 1973, 72, 73, and but still great stuff. Phil was a poet, and you can actually hear it and hear it very well. Great stuff. Vagabonds of the Western World, Thin Lizzy. Okay, and this next album, they signed with a new label. Eric Bell quit the band. Instead of going with one guitarist, they went with 2 guitarists, and you've got one of their greatest albums. This is from 1973, no, 1974, and this is Nightlife. Again, Fitzpatrick cover, fantastic artwork. What other than on a t-shirt, you know? This is a crossover record for them. Okay, they gave him 2 guitar players, so you've got Irish, I believe he was Irish, maybe he was from the UK. Let's see, you got Brian Downey, Philip Lynott, then you've got Scott Gorham from the USA, and then, man, I'm having brain farts doing this one today, aren't I? It's Sunday afternoon, lazy Sunday afternoon. Yeah. He's also on this one here, and why can't I remember his freaking name? Brian Downey and Brian Robertson, Robbo, who later on went to join Motorhead. Sorry about that. Anyhow, this album was more of a crossover. It was taking in that early sound that they had, that kind of Irish folk rock sound, and mixing it with what would become their signature sound, that dual guitar sound that Brian and Scott, you know, together created with Philip and Brian Downey. Again, on here some very great songs. You got Philomena, which is a song Phil wrote to his mom. Sha La La, which was a killer heavy song, despite the kind of, I don't know, this name doesn't sound like, sounds more like something Sha Na Na would sing with Bowser. Sha Na, you know, I'm not going to sing. Dear Heart, Nightlife, It's Only Money, Still in Love with You. Just a great record. But probably the standout cut on here was Sha La La, featuring some fantastic drumming, features some double bass that just wasn't something you heard back in 1974, 1975, you know. Brian Downey is one of the most underrated drummers in rock, in my opinion. This is just a fantastic record, even if it's not a fan favorite. So, like I said, more of a crossover. Next up is Fighting. This is 1975. This is the U.S. cover for Fighting. Fighting was definitely a heavy rock album. To me, this was 1970s heavy metal. This is what heavy metal became. This is what Iron Maiden patterned their sound after, and many of the other new wave of British heavy metal bands. Thin Lizzy was one of those big, you know, inspirations to that movement. Def Leppard early on were playing Thin Lizzy covers, almost a Thin Lizzy cover band. So anyhow, Thin Lizzy Fighting, 1975, I believe, and every song on here is essential. Rosalie, which of course is a Bob Seger cover it was earlier Bob Seger, not a song Bob ever played live, but for Thin Lizzy it became somewhat of a minor hit. Still played on radio today. I still hear it on some of the local rock stations. For Those Who Live, Suicide, another heavy rocker penned by Philip Lynott. Wild One, another song that became a calling card of Philip Lynott's. Finding My Way Back, King's Vengeance, which is a Scott Gorham song, and fantastic song it is. That song would later be revamped by another Thin Lizzy shoot-off band. Spirit Slips Away, Silver Dollar, which is a Brian Robertson song, and Ballad of a Hard Man, Freedom Song. Great album. Two different covers. The UK had this cover. This was on Mercury. This is on Vertigo Records. Everything about this is different other than the track listing. It's just on the standard. It's on the standard Vertigo label. It's the Spaceship label, not the Swirl label. I don't think that one was ever released with a Swirl label. So where are we on? We're on the band's biggest, most well-known album, 1974, 75. And this is Jailbreak on Vertigo Records. This is a UK pressing. This is an original pressing. And one of the ways you could tell the original pressing from all the other pressings, I think, is it has the gatefold with the full drawing on the inside and the fit drawing on the outside. Same exact track listing. Everything else is pretty much the same. Almost a concept album. Not quite as much as the next one would be. Lynott was just becoming a poet, and well, he was already a poet, but he really just started to come into his own in these albums. And this album was a huge breakthrough album for them in the United States. Of course, it spawned two hits. The biggest, which is The Boys Are Back in Town, but Jailbreak as well is on here. Two of their most well-known songs, but it also features one of their greatest songs ever, which is Emerald, in my opinion. A song that's been covered by several bands, most recently by Overkill. Cowboy Song, another fantastic song. Fight or Fall, Warriors, another great one. Romeo and the Lonely Girl, Running Back, and Angel from the Coast. Fantastic record. Again, that was the UK pressing. The US pressing is similar. Like I said, back is identical. This one actually has a promotional, one of those promo sheets that they sent out to the radio stations and magazines. Instead of a band photo, it actually has a black and white glossy of the cover, which is bizarre. But then it has, you know, other stuff in here. Photo of the band and the record station promo sheet, whatnot. This is just really cool. I'm really glad to have this along with my US pressing of Jailbreak. Again, you can see the difference. There is no gatefold. You can see all four band members here as opposed to only being able to see three on the other one. And this is flat. There's no see-through part. There's no die cut at all here. So again, breakthrough album for them. Made them just massively huge in the United States, at least, you know, at the time. That album was followed up by one that I consider one of their finest ever. Definitely their most underrated album. This is Johnny the Fox, again a Fitzpatrick cover, another fantastic looking cover, gorgeous graphics, beautiful colors. awesome music. Again, same lineup here. Lineup has pretty much stayed the same through the early 70s, and just not a bad song on here. You know, if somebody's running one of those contests for perfect records, here's a perfect record right here. From front to back, every song on here. You got Johnny, Rocky, Borderline, Don't Believe a Word, which was a minor hit for the band, more of a fan favorite than a hit because it never gets spent on the radio. Fool's Gold, Johnny the Fox, Johnny the Fox, he calls you Jimmy the Weed. Old Flame, Massacre, another killer heavy song. You can basically hear Iron Maiden in Massacre. This is long before Maiden were known though. Sweet Marie and Boogie Woogie Dance, despite the name, another heavy rocker. It's just a great album. This one's a US copy on Mercury. I'm thinking this one also has a picture sleeve. Let's check and see, because I can't remember. Could be wrong on that. Nope, I'm right. So, lyrics. No, just brown on the back. Alright, next up, another brilliant record from front to back. One of my all-time favorites. Again, that's ridiculous because almost all Thin Lizzy are among my favorites. But this is Bad Reputation from 1977. Only 3 band members noted on the cover. Brian Robertson was not featured here. Instead, we get Phil, Scott Gorham, and Brian Downey. Robertson had, I don't know, busted his hand in a bar fight or something along those lines, and basically wasn't there for much of the recording of this album and was left off. However, his picture is on the back here, and he is featured. He plays, let's see, lead guitar on several songs. Let's see, on Opium Trail and Killer Without a Cause, and the second solo on The Woman's Gonna Break Your Heart. All other solos, all rhythm guitar is all played by Scott Gorham on this one. Still, great record, band at their prime. Unfortunately, they were heavily involved in the drugs. Fortunately, that seemed to help their creative juices flow. Like I said, not a bad song on here. Starts off Soldiers of Fortune, Bad Reputation, another just vicious drum attack from Brian Downey, Opium Trail, Southbound, Dancing in the Moonlight, Killer Without a Cause, Downtown Sundown, The Woman's Gonna Break Your Heart, and Dear Lord, which is basically a prayer to God. Very cool song, very cool album. Always liked the artwork to this one. Have a t-shirt of this one too. I'm sure you guys have seen it if you watch my channel for any amount of time. Brilliant album from them. Didn't get them another hit record though, which is what the record company was wanting. There was no big singles on here, which is unfortunate because their popularity was waning instead of growing. Picture sleeve, lots of pictures of the band live and posing. Again, only 3 members shown here. Highly recommend that album to anybody who likes. If your foray, or if you're going into Thin Lizzy is just Jailbreak, if that's the only album you really know, check out Johnny the Fox. Check out Bad Reputation. They won't let you down. They're as good as, if not better than, that record. So, all right. So then, what I consider one of the greatest live albums of all time. This is Live and Dangerous. Just taking those old songs from the earlier 70s all the way up until now, it's 1978, and just giving them an edge, giving them energy. The crowd, the band fired up. They just had such a raw, heavy sound. I've played this one hundreds, if not thousands of times in my lifetime, over and over and over again. This one actually has played roles in my life as well. Met one of my closest friends because of this record. We had Ultimatum's bass player join the band playing songs off this record. There's just so much awesomeness about this record. Not only because of how great the music is, but look at that album cover. I mean, that's performance, It's one of the things I learned from Phil Lynott. When I got on stage to perform, I walked off stage drenched in sweat and tired. Gave my all. Didn't matter if there was one person in the audience or hundreds of people in the audience. I put on a performance, and that's what you get in this album cover. You just feel that heavy live energy. And this is one of those albums as a kid that I owned, and I would just watch. I would just listen to it and just stare at all the pictures on the inside. So it is a gatefold 2-album set, and you can see there's tons of live photos in here. And like I said, I would just stare at these things over and over and over again. And then each one of the picture sleeves has other photos of the band live. Another story about this record is, I was in literally in grade school in 1978, and I had this record and loved it. Played it over and over again. Showed my mom a picture of, let's see if I can find that picture on here. There it is. I showed my mom one day, I said, this is Scott Gorham. I said, someday, Mom, I said, I want my hair to look just like that. And my mom said, yeah, when you're 18, move out of my house, you can have your hair just like that. And so when I turned 18 and moved out of her house, I grew my hair long just like that. So yeah, another story. There's just so many stories that go on this album because it played such a big part of my life. So that's a brilliant live album. And there's a bunch of outtakes from this album that are out there as bootlegs and other bonus tracks on singles and compilations that are just fantastic as well. This copy I've had forever. It is a bit beat up. Love to get myself a new remastered copy, but I'll never get rid of this slightly beat up copy because this is my copy, and I've had it for decades. The record's still in premium condition, still very listenable. So yeah, I don't really worry too much about it. Anyhow, I'm babbling on about that album because I love it so much. Let's see. Next album, they lost Brian Downey on. I'm sorry. They lost Brian Robertson on guitar, Robbo, and Gary Moore entered the picture, at least for a short time. They recorded this brilliant album, a total gem of an album. A little less heavy than the other albums, mostly in the production than anything else. Again, didn't really sport any big U.S. singles, but a great record from front to back. Great guitar playing. The dual leads are still there, if not more intensified with Gary Moore and Scott Gorham together. You get Gary Moore's songwriting on here as well. So you get Do Anything You Want, Toughest Street in Town, S&M, Waiting for an Alibi, My Sarah, Got to Give It Up, which is a song that it's too bad he didn't give it up because we lost Phil because of substance abuse. Get Out of Here, With Love, and Rosen Dublin, Black Rose, They Rock Legends, which is a song penned by Phil and Gary Moore, who would go on to pen a lot more songs in the future. Out in the Fields, right there is another one. Again, no U.S. singles, no U.S. High charting singles. They were losing popularity, unfortunately, and I'm sure that was just playing into. I don't know. I'm sure it was just a thorn in the side that they couldn't garner another U.S. hit single. So another awesome Fitzpatrick cover, another awesome record. A lot of people don't care for this one as much. I think it's brilliant, as good as anything they recorded before. This is Chinatown. There was a new guitar player. Again, Gary Moore left during the tour for Black Rose. Couldn't take what was going on within the band, the drug use, the partying. He actually left and formed another band, which I don't have back here. I thought I did. But Chinatown was what, 1980? Was it 79? I can't remember now. I think it was 1980. 1980, and again, brilliant record, great Fitzpatrick artwork, some all-time classics on here. Of course, the title track, Sugar Blues, Killer on the Loose, Genocide, Hey You. There's just not a bad song on here either. A song which, an album, oh, I should have mentioned on that album and this album, on guitar, second guitar was Snowy White, who had played, I guess, background with Pink Floyd. So he's on the two albums. A lot of people said he didn't fit, his style didn't fit. Whatever, it still sounds like Thin Lizzy to me, it still sounds great to me. Renegade was a slightly heavier record, playing along with what was, I guess, going on within the heavy metal scene. It was in Europe. Phil was also much into the punk scene that was into Europe in the early 80s, so it kind of plays into this heavier sound here. You're not going to hear punk on here, but the aggression that you got from punk, he was starting to usher that back into the band again, getting that heavier sound, and I think you can really hear that on a song like Angel of Death, which is odd though because Angel of Death is such a heavy song, but instead of having this like ripping guitar solo in the middle, it's got a synth solo, which is cool, or piano solo. But you also have a new member on here. You're adding in, well, he wasn't actually listed as a member. He's still got the original 4 on here, but they actually got a keyboard player now in Darren Wharton, I believe is his name. See if he's listed on here somewhere. No, he's not. But he became a vital part of the band from this point on as well. Great record. Let's see what other songs on here that are... Hollywood became a somewhat known song. The Pressure Will Blow. Mexican Blood. Yeah, it's a good record. Unfortunately, it did not garner any big hits for the band. And between the that thorn in their side and the substances that they were shoving down their, or up their noses and other parts of their body, I'm sure, they were struggling. Again, they lost another guitar player in Snowy White. Still have the Brian Downey and Scott Gorham, but they added a guy from the new wave of British heavy metal movement. Let's see if his picture's on here. There he is, little teeny picture. That's John Sykes, who had been playing in Tigers of Pantang. They brought in Chris Tsangardis to produce, and he was, becoming a very well-known producer at the time, especially of a lot of those new wave British heavy metal bands. He had produced some early Anvil records about the same time as this record was produced. So, Metal on Metal and what's the follow-up record? Force and Fire. Anyhow, Thunder and Lightning, definitely a heavier record for the band. Thunder and Lightning, Cold Sweat, just killer songs. Baby Please Don't Go. Not the song, the old blues standard that bands like Ted Nugent and Aerosmith and AC/DC have covered. That was an original Lynette song. Bad Habits, Heart Attack, The Holy War, and the ballad The Sun Goes Down is brilliant. A lot of people listen to this, one of their favorite Thin Lizzy albums. A lot of Thin Lizzy purists don't like this album because it's too heavy metal for them. I think it's awesome. I love it. I've always considered Thin Lizzy to be one of the great heavy metal bands of the 70s. So why not be one of the great heavy metal bands of the 80s? And that's what this record is here. This still has the Irish influences, but definitely there is a big new wave of British heavy metal influence going on here as well. Of course, John Sykes being a huge influence right at that point. And the band was basically falling apart, but they did manage to release one more live record. This is Life Live. This is the last official release from the band as they were still together. They toured for a long time on this record. There's some official releases that came out of some of the shows from that tour, which I do have on CD. Great recording. I do think the production here is a little polished. I would have rather have heard the band raw and heavy, like Ted Nugent's Double Live Gonzo, where it's just live. Leave in the overdubs, don't fix the rubs. Leave out the overdubs, don't fix the rubs. Just leave it all in there, give you that raw, heavy feel. But this was very touched up, and I think it's very apparent. They had every single Thin Lizzy guitarist on this one too. They brought back guys like Snowy White and Eric Bell to play along. And as a matter of fact, if you look very closely on this, you can see there's Brian Robertson right there. There's Eric Bell right back there. I believe that's Gary Moore sitting over here. There's John Sykes. No, there's Gary Moore. So that's Scott Gorham hiding in the back. And there's Phil Lynott and, of course, Brian Downey. Great live record. Has songs going all the way back from the early 70s. Highly recommended. Okay, now we're getting into some of the stuff that's outside of the normal catalog. This is Remembering Part 1. Remembering is from 1976. It's basically a collection of songs from the Decca years, some singles and whatnot. Black Boys in the Corner, Rudolph's Tangos, Song for While I'm Away, Little Girl in Bloom, Cinemoa, Little Darling, Remembering, Gonna Creep Up on You, Whiskey in a Jar, and The Rocker. Of course, Whiskey in a Jar was a minor single for the minor hit single for the band. There you go, Enunciate. Get so excited about this stuff, I just... Anyhow, Remembering, featuring Eric Bell and Gary Moore. Some early, collection of early stuff from Thin Lizzy. Lizzy Killers. I've had this one forever. This was from, I think it was from 1988 or so. Not sure the date on this one. On Vertigo, this is a West German pressing. And you kind of get a little history of the band in the back. A little bit of everything on here with Whiskey in a Jar, Wild One, Jailbreak, The Boys Are Back in Town, Don't Believe a Word, Dancing in the Moonlight, Waiting for an Alibi, Do Anything You Want, Sarah, Chinatown, and Killers on the Loose. Cool compilation. This is similar title, Killers Live. Thin Lizzy Killers Live. And this is actually a 12-inch EP, 4-song EP, live material. Bad Reputation, Open Trail, Are You Ready, all Thin Lizzy compositions, and Dear Miss Lonely Hearts, which is actually a Phil Lynott solo song, played live here by Thin Lizzy. Another compilation. This is 1976, 1984, Lizzy Lives. So you get Lizzy Killers, and then you get Lizzy Lives. And Lizzy Lives... You know what? I cannot remember the year on this thing for the life of me. Let's see if there's a year on this one. I'm pretty sure this one came first. This might have been early 80s, actually, like 81, 82, somewhere in that area. This one was later 80s, probably like 89, 88, 89. This one came out. Very similar track listings, but you get Jailbreak, Boys Are Back in Town, Cowboy Song, Don't Believe a Word, Johnny, Dancing in the Moonlight, Killers on the Loose, Hollywood, Waiting for an Alibi, Rosalie, Cowgirl Song, live version from Live and Dangerous, Thunder and Lightning, and Are You Ready, which is also from the live album. So there's a couple of cool 80s compilations. This is a much later release. Let's see, this one's 2009. I don't know whether this is considered a bootleg or not. It's from a VH1 classic, so I always considered it it's got to be somewhat official. I'm sure VH1 wouldn't put out a bootleg. But this is Still Dangerous, live at the Tower Theater, Philadelphia, 1977. And I did see some shows at the Tower Theater. Unfortunately, in 1977, I was too young to go on my own, and there would be no way my parents would be caught in a place like that. So, great show, great live show. I have a CD version of this, and love having this original vinyl pressing too. I don't know if this thing's still available or not. It may be. I picked this up at Amoeba Records way back, probably in like 2009, 2010. Again, live 1977. This is on Back on Black. Pretty sure this one is a unofficial release. Live 77. You've got live versions of Boys Are Back in Town, Emerald Wild One, Massacre, Are You Ready, Sun Goes Down, Dancing in the Moonlight, Sha-La-La, Whiskey in a Jar, and an alternative version of Boys Are Back in Town. And let's see if there's a year on here. There is no release year on here. Regardless, it's got a good sound. It doesn't matter. I'd buy anything with Thin Lizzy's name on it because I just love them so much. If they released a record of Fart Noises by Phil Lynott, I probably would buy it just because it was Phil Lynott. So, yeah, this one's so cool. This is the Passionate one. This is an album, a compilation basically of sessions with John Peel, and there's one other show on here. Most of this is John Peel sessions. You get a couple of B-sides, Just the Two of Us, 79 B-side, Rockula, Rock Your Love, 1979 Black Rose outtake, Didn't I, a live version from Ireland, 1980. But Johnny is from the John Peel sessions, Whiskey in a Jar, John Peel sessions from 72, Saga of the Aging Orphan, 1972, John Peel, Vagabonds of the Western World, 73, John Peel, The Rocker, 73, Peel, and then Dear Heart from Bob Harris, Sounds of the 70s, 1974. And it's just a cool record. Again, it's got the Obi strip on it, even though it's not Japanese. I can't remember if this thing had anything else cool in it or not. I don't think it did. I just think it had cool center rings. Yeah. There's the home taping is killing music thing going on here. And nice black and white photo of Phil on the other side. And this is the last one, and this is an odd one because it's sort of Thin Lizzy. Of course, they've been touring for years using the Thin Lizzy moniker, playing Thin Lizzy songs. I've seen a couple incarnations of Thin Lizzy without Phil Lynott on vocals and bass, and I really enjoyed it. A lot of people think it can't be Thin Lizzy without Phil. Maybe not, but they're keeping the music alive, and they're doing a good job of it. But this is Thin Lizzy live in 2012, Volume 1. 2 album sets, again on Back on Black. And this is basically the band that is also Black Star Riders. When they started recording their own new material, rather than use the Thin Lizzy moniker, in respects to Phil, they changed their names to Black Star Riders. So far, they've released 3 albums under that name. So there's a couple other Thin Lizzy albums released, live albums released with different incarnations of the band. I think Scott Gorham's been in all of them, and he should be. He's one of the heavy hitters from the band. This one also features Brian Downey on drums. Brian Downey does not play in Black Star Riders, and on vocals it's Ricky. Who's on vocals? I cannot remember who's on vocals in this one. Might have been Ricky Warwick, which was the. It's got to be Ricky Warwick. Yeah, Darren Wharton's on here too, of course, who played on the last couple albums of Thin Lizzy with with Philip Lynott. But yeah, I think it was Ricky Warwick who was in a band, UK band, I believe it was, called The Almighty. It might have been, I can't remember if they were a UK band or an Irish band. Regardless, I do have some stuff by The Almighty as well. So there you go. This is also a gatefold. I don't think there's anything special on the gatefold. Yeah, just a big Thin Lizzy logo. And not that it means much, but this thing is on kind of a white vinyl with custom centerings. So there you go. That's my Thin Lizzy 12-inch collection. I do have a bunch of CDs and quite a few 7-inch singles that I could show, and maybe I'll do that in the future if people are interested. You know what? Leave me a thumbs up and a message below. Let me know if you're interested in seeing the CDs and the bootlegs and the other compilations and live albums I have in the 7 inches, and we'll show them if people are interested in it. So hope you enjoyed this video. Appreciate y'all watching. Probably a long one. Apologize for that, but hope you enjoyed it anyhow. God bless. Stay strong.